Abigail Carter had always prided herself on being prepared for anything. With her straight blonde hair pulled back in a neat ponytail and her pressed pantsuit, she was the picture of competence as she stood outside the intimidating glass doors of Hawthorne Enterprises. But nothing could have prepared her for what awaited her on the other side. "Good morning, Miss Carter. Mr. Hawthorne is expecting you," the receptionist said with a practiced smile. Abigail nodded, trying to calm her racing heart. This interview was her last chance. After being laid off from her previous accounting job and struggling to pay rent for months, landing a position at one of the most prestigious financial firms in New York would be her salvation. As she was escorted through the gleaming hallways, a deafening alarm suddenly blared throughout the building. Red lights flashed, and a mechanical voice announced, "Security breach in progress. All personnel, initiate lockdown procedures immediately." Panic erupted around her. Employees rushed in all directions as security guards appeared from nowhere. Abigail froze, unsure which way to go, when a strong hand grabbed her arm and pulled her into a nearby office. "In here," commanded a deep voice. She stumbled into a spacious corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline. Behind a massive mahogany desk stood Jackson Hawthorne himself, tall, imposing, with piercing blue eyes and dark hair that had just the right amount of distinguished gray at the temples. At 45, he was among America's most eligible bachelors and the financial world's most ruthless players. "Sir, we need to evacuate you immediately," a security officer insisted, entering the room. "Not necessary, Frank," Jackson replied calmly, pressing a button on his desk. The alarms abruptly silenced. "Just a routine security drill. I believe we passed with flying colors." After the security team reluctantly departed, Jackson turned his attention to Abigail. "Ms. Carter, I presume. Sorry about the dramatic entrance. I like to see how potential employees handle pressure." Abigail straightened her jacket. "You staged a security alert for my interview?" "I did, and you remained remarkably composed." He gestured to a chair. "Please, sit." Abigail sat rigidly, clutching her portfolio. "With all due respect, Mr. Hawthorne, that seems excessive for an accounting position." Jackson laughed, a rich, unexpected sound. "Who said anything about accounting? I've reviewed your resume thoroughly. You have exactly the skills I need, but not for any position in my company." "I don't understand." Jackson leaned forward, his expression suddenly serious. "Ms. Carter, I need a wife." Abigail blinked. "Excuse me?" "Temporarily, of course. For 30 days. He slid a folder across the desk. "My grandmother, Eleanor Hawthorne, is dying. She's my only family, and her final wish is to see me settled down before she passes. The doctors give her a month at most. So you want to hire me? As your wife?" "Precisely. You'll attend family gatherings, accompany me to events, and convince my grandmother that I've found love. In return—" He wrote a number on a slip of paper and passed it to her. Abigail's eyes widened at the amount, enough to pay off her student loans and rent for a year. "That's the signing bonus. Weekly payments will follow. Plus, when our arrangement concludes, I'll guarantee you a real position at Hawthorne Enterprises. What do you say, Ms. Carter? Will you be my wife for 30 days? As Abigail stared at the offer, torn between outrage and desperation, she had no idea that this bizarre proposition would lead to the most unexpected 30 days of her life. "This is completely insane," Abigail muttered, as she examined herself in the full-length mirror of the guest suite at Jackson's penthouse. It had been precisely 2 days since she'd reluctantly signed his bizarre contract. 2 days since she'd agreed to become Mrs. Jackson Hawthorne, at least on paper, for the next 30 days. The designer dress she wore cost more than her old apartment's annual rent, and the diamond ring on her finger could have paid off her student loans 3 times over. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Ready to meet the family, dear." "Wife?" Jackson's voice carried a note of amusement. Abigail opened the door to find him looking impossibly handsome in a tailored suit. "Don't call me that," she said, "and I still think this is fraud." "It's not fraud if there's no intent to steal," Jackson replied smoothly. "We're simply giving an old woman her dying wish." As they rode the elevator down to Jackson's waiting luxury SUV, he briefed her. "Remember, we met 6 months ago, at a charity gala. You rejected me twice before agreeing to dinner. I proposed 3 weeks ago during a private dinner at home. You appreciate simplicity over grand gestures." "How romantic," Abigail said dryly. "You've thought of everything." "Almost everything," Jackson said, suddenly serious. "There's one thing I didn't anticipate." "What's that?" "My cousin Tyler. He's always been jealous of my position in the family. He'll be looking for any holes in our story." The drive to Eleanor Hawthorne's estate in the Hamptons was tense but mercifully brief. As they pulled up to the sprawling mansion, Abigail's nerves threatened to overwhelm her. "Just be yourself," Jackson whispered, taking her hand. "That's why I chose you. You're authentic in a world of fakes." Abigail was startled by the unexpected compliment but had no time to respond as the front door swung open. A tall, elegant woman in her 70s stood there, supported by a nurse on one side and a silver cane on the other. "Jackson!" "Eleanor!" Hawthorne exclaimed, her voice surprisingly strong despite her frail appearance. "Grandmother." Jackson smiled warmly, embracing her gently. "I've brought someone special to meet you." Eleanor's piercing blue eyes, so like her grandson's, turned to Abigail. "So this is the woman who finally captured my impossible grandson's heart." "Abigail Carter, ma'am. It's a pleasure to meet you." Abigail extended her hand, but Eleanor pulled her into a hug instead. "Call me Eleanor, dear. We're family now." The elderly woman's embrace was surprisingly strong, and Abigail found herself blinking back unexpected tears. It had been so long since she'd felt part of a family. Inside, they were met by other relatives gathered for Eleanor's birthday celebration. Jackson introduced her to aunts, uncles, and cousins, whose names blurred together until a handsome man about Jackson's age approached with a calculated smile. "So this is the mystery woman," he said, eyeing Abigail with open skepticism. "Tyler Hawthorne, Jackson's cousin and CFO at Hawthorne Enterprises." "Pleasure," Abigail replied, matching his firm handshake. "Tell me, how did an accountant manage to catch New York's most notorious bachelor?" Tyler asked. "Jack's always preferred models and socialites." Before Abigail could answer, Jackson slipped his arm around her waist. "Abigail challenged me, called me an entitled corporate robot on our first meeting." Abigail looked at him in surprise. They hadn't rehearsed this. "Did she now?" Eleanor chuckled, appearing beside them. "I like her even more. Come, dear. Sit beside me at dinner. I want to hear everything about you." Throughout the elaborate meal, Abigail fielded questions with increasing confidence. To her surprise, Jackson kept giving her genuine smiles. Not the practiced ones she'd seen in business magazines, but real ones that reached his eyes. As the evening drew to a close, Eleanor took Abigail's hands in hers. "You must both stay. The night. I've had the East Wing prepared." "The East Wing has only one bedroom," Jackson whispered when Eleanor moved away. "What?" Abigail hissed. "You didn't plan for this?" "I didn't think she'd insist we stay overnight so soon," he admitted. As they followed the housekeeper up the grand staircase, Tyler caught up with them. "Just so you know," he said quietly, "Grandmother revised her will last week. If she believes Jack is happily married, he gets controlling interest in the company. If not, the shares are divided equally among all family members." Once alone in the lavish bedroom, Abigail turned on Jackson. "You didn't tell me this was about inheritance." "It's not," Jackson insisted. "The company is already mine. This just prevents a family power struggle after she's gone." "I don't believe you," Abigail said, grabbing a pillow from the massive 4-poster bed. You can take the couch. As she stormed into the bathroom, Abigail caught a glimpse of genuine hurt in Jackson's eyes. For a moment, she wondered if there was more to this arrangement, and to Jackson Hawthorne, than she'd initially thought. 3 weeks into their arrangement, Abigail found herself in uncharted territory. What had started as a business deal had evolved into something far more complicated. She sat on the balcony of Jackson's penthouse, watching the sunrise paint the Manhattan skyline in gold. "Coffee?" Jackson appeared beside her, offering a steaming mug. His hair was tousled, his usual crisp demeanor softened by the early hour. "Thanks," she murmured, accepting it. "Couldn't sleep either?" Jackson leaned against the railing. "Grandmother's doctor called. She's doing better. Might have more time than they thought." "That's wonderful news," Abigail said genuinely. Over the past weeks, she'd grown fond of Eleanor, whose sharp wit and warm heart belied her formidable reputation. "It is," Jackson agreed, "but it also means our arrangement might need to be extended." Their eyes met, and Abigail felt that now familiar flutter in her chest. She looked away quickly. "Your grandmother invited us to her charity gala tomorrow night. Tyler will be there with his new girlfriend." "Natalie," Jackson nodded. "Former model, current social climber. Tyler thinks bringing her will somehow impress grandmother." "You sound jealous," Abigail teased. "Of Tyler? Never." Jackson smiled, then hesitated. "But I am worried. Tyler's been asking questions around the office about you, digging into your background." Abigail's smile faded. "What do we do?" "We stick to our story," Jackson said. "And maybe we should practice." "Practice what?" "Being convincing." Jackson stepped closer, his eyes intent. "We've held hands, shared meals, but if anyone's watching closely—" "We're not very affectionate," Abigail finished. "Exactly." Before she could react, Jackson's lips met hers. Tentative. At first, then, with growing certainty. When they finally broke apart, Abigail's heart was racing. "That was—" she began. "Practice," Jackson supplied, though his uneven breathing suggested otherwise. The following evening, they arrived at the gala arm in arm. Eleanor's face lit up when she saw them, and she promptly introduced Abigail to her circle of friends as "my wonderful new granddaughter." "You two are adorable together," an elderly woman commented. "How did you know she was the one, Jackson?" Jackson looked at Abigail, his expression softening. "She sees me. Not Hawthorne Enterprises, not the family legacy, just me." The sincerity in his voice caught Abigail off guard. For a moment, she almost believed him. As the evening progressed, Tyler approached with Natalie on his arm. "Enjoying playing house, Jack? I hear your wife was practically bankrupt before you met her. Convenient timing." Abigail tensed, but Jackson's hand at the small of her back steadied her. "If you'll excuse us," Jackson said coldly, guiding Abigail away. Later, as they swayed on the dance floor, Abigail whispered, "He knows." "It doesn't matter," Jackson insisted. "The board votes tomorrow on the new company structure. After that, Tyler can't touch us." "Us?" Abigail searched his face. "There is no us, Jackson. This ends in a week, remember?" Something flickered. In his eyes, hurt perhaps, before his expression shuttered. Of course, just business. The next morning, Abigail woke to frantic knocking. She opened the guest room door to find Jackson, his face pale. "Grandmother collapsed. We need to go to the hospital." The next hours passed in a blur. Eleanor had suffered a stroke, and though she was stable, the doctors were concerned. As they sat in the hospital waiting room, Tyler arrived, looking genuinely distressed. "How is she?" "Resting," Jackson replied, his voice hoarse. Tyler nodded, then glanced between them. "I spoke with her assistant this morning. She mentioned grandmother had an envelope for you two, a wedding gift she was planning to give you. Next week." Jackson frowned. What gift? I don't know, but it got me thinking. Tyler hesitated. Look, Jack, I know we've had our differences, but grandmother loves you. If this marriage makes her happy in her final days, then I'm glad. For her, even if what? Abigail asked. Tyler met her eyes. Even if it started as a business arrangement. The silence that followed was deafening. How long have you known? Jackson finally asked. From the beginning, Tyler admitted. But I've been watching you. 2. Something's changed, hasn't it? Before either could respond, a nurse appeared. Mr. Hawthorne, your grandmother is asking for you both. Eleanor was propped up in bed, looking frail but determined. There you are, she said, reaching for their hands. I need to tell you something important. Rest, grandmother, Jackson urged. Hush, Eleanor commanded. I've known from the start. Abigail's heart sank. Known what? That this marriage was Jackson's elaborate ruse, Eleanor said with surprising strength. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate my grandson's sudden engagement? After decades of avoiding commitment? Jackson looked stricken. Grandmother, Let me finish, Eleanor interrupted. I played along because I was curious, and what I've seen these past weeks has been remarkable. You've changed, Jackson. She's changed you. Eleanor turned to Abigail. And you, my dear, look at him exactly the way my husband used to look at me, like you're constantly surprised to find yourself falling for him. Abigail blushed deeply, unable to deny the truth of Eleanor's words. Life is short, Eleanor continued. Don't waste it on pretense. The company, the money, none of it matters without love. 2 days later, as Eleanor recovered at home, Abigail packed her things. Their 30 days were nearly up, and despite Eleanor's revelation, neither she nor Jackson had addressed the feelings growing between them. As she zipped her suitcase, Jackson appeared in the doorway. You're leaving. The contract is fulfilled, Abigail replied, though the words felt hollow. Eleanor knows the truth and she's recovering well. What about your job at Hawthorne Enterprises? I've received other offers, she lied, avoiding his gaze. Jackson stepped forward, taking her hands. Stay. Why? Abigail challenged, her heart hammering. Because somewhere between the fake smiles and the practiced touches, I fell in love with you. Because these 30 days showed me what my life could be with someone who sees me for who I really am. This isn't part of the contract, Abigail whispered. I'm tearing up the contract, Jackson said, pulling her close. Be my wife, Abigail. Not for 30 days. For good. Your grandmother will be thrilled, Abigail laughed through happy tears. She already knows, Jackson admitted. Who do you think suggested I tear up the contract? As their lips met in a kiss that promised forever, Abigail reflected that sometimes the most unexpected arrangements led to the most perfect outcomes. 1 year later, Eleanor Hawthorne sat proudly in the front row as Jackson and Abigail renewed their vows, this time for real. Tyler stood as best man, having found his own unexpected romance with Abigail's college roommate, whom he'd met at their first wedding reception. Hawthorne Enterprises now had a co-CEO, as Abigail's financial acumen had proven invaluable. But, more importantly, it had a heart, thanks to the 30-day arrangement that had become a lifetime commitment.